Hello, how's everybody doing? This is Pierre Dur. And I got this is number C, okay? I had a three-part that I was working on, and number C was the last one that I was doing. I hope everybody's doing fine. I haven't, I have put out two other videos. One was A, one was B. And this was the C part, which is it was hard for me to do because it entails everything that I've worked on. I got this first of all, let me tell you, I got this big window over here. I have the heat on, but it has like I don't know. I mean, if you know about big windows when it gets really, really cold, it's not like, the windows open or anything, because I don't put the window, I don't even crack it, but it has like I don't know, with glass, it's like it's something like a draft, but I can just feel the cold behind the window, you know. But anyway, I'm glad I got heat on. I know it's more expensive, even though they told me that the heat is included. And then when I was telling them, I went to the electric company. I go, well, they told me that the heat was included. And she goes, yes, it is included. But when you use extra, it goes on to your bill. And so what they were saying is, like, when it gets really cold, it they do charge you for it. Okay, so I don't even know why they said, the heat is included, heat and air conditioning, because it's not. Not really, because like when it gets really, really cold, it's, you have to pay for it. And it gets really, really cold. But anyway, I just keep a jacket on or something like that. Although I'm glad that it's not cold in the apartment. So I was just telling you some things that happened to me. I'm sorry, but this C one that I'm working on was so complex. It's not that it's so complex. It's kind of scary because I had to face things in this third part that I don't really want to. What I'm saying I had to face it is mean that I have to say it to you all. And like everybody else, you just want life to go on, and you don't want to do a lot of things that are so intense, but that's the way life is. It's just intense. So one thing I'd say, I got this book, I got this here too. I don't usually use a pen and a paper, but I got this down, for certain things, because it's in depth. But one thing I learned about the YouTube, and I always talked about, like, how this YouTube speech is. I notice it, because I'm the type of person that does things and also likes to learn exactly while I'm doing them. Like, for instance, if you follow my videos, you know that when I read a book, I just don't read the book. While I'm reading the book, what am I doing? I'm conscious of what am I doing? What is it that I'm doing while I'm reading? So that's why I came to a conclusion about the YouTube and the language. It might help people who are YouTube content creators. And I broke it down to where it's pretty much a conversation type speech, because you have to draw from everything. If you notice, when you have a conversation with somebody, it's nothing like reading a book or anything. You learn so much, just from a conversation, because you get to see the expression on people's faces. You get to see what they like, what they're scared about, how they speak. They don't want to talk about this. They don't want to talk about this. This is difficult for them to say. All those things that you can't catch in a book, by reading, I forgot what they call it, prose or something like that. You just can't catch it. And you can catch a lot of things when you read. You can learn a lot from reading. So it's much like that. And this leads to one of the points, because this is the conversation, like I'm saying, I'm not going to, especially this one, I'm not going to structure it because it goes in and out of so much life. It's like when you talk to someone, when you're speaking to someone about something important, like I'm speaking to you, there's so many details, there's so many things that you have to go in and out of that you can't really put it down on paper. You know what I mean? You can't really like put it down like we did when we were like a talk. I know you're familiar with that term, a talk or a sermon or something like that. It's just something that you conversate about, and that's the opening of this video, is that it is a conversation, because I don't want to structure it because it goes into so many different points, and it's mostly about what happened to, I have to say, to me, because this YouTube is going to be really, really sensitive for maybe some group or something like that. So I have to say, to me, okay, what I just said, I don't know how to link in. I'm just going, like I said, it's into a conversation. Because I wanted to mention the first point, if I didn't already mention it. But like, for instance, how can I say? What has happened to me as a Jehovah Witness, when I was coming up with information about this YouTube, I jotted down something on my notes that I wanted to make as a title, which is now, because after I wrote this title, I continue to add more information. And this is what I had for the title. And I thought this was great back then. And when I say back then, I mean like 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe even a month. The truth about being a Jehovah Witness and an ex-Jehovah Witness, which has saved me. Okay, so the truth about being a Jehovah Witness and an ex-Jehovah Witness, which has saved me. Which now, I don't know what mindset I was in, but now it has, since I thought of that title, it has developed even more, just continually. I'm sorry for that, but now I can see the major point of it's going to be my development through this whole time that we've been doing these ex-Jehovah YouTubes. First thing I want to say about brainwashing, okay, because this is my new title. I was trying to come up with the new title, and I think it's going to be The Conversation of Completeness of Not Being Brainwashed. The reason why I say that, I don't know why I have to say it twice. This is what I may feel as the title of this YouTube. The conversation of my completeness of not being brainwashed. Okay? Now, the reason why I didn't put anything like Jehovah Witness, because, and if you follow my videos, you know where I'm going. Because I was brainwashed as a Jehovah Witness, okay? Or whatever else you want to call it. Brainwashed, and then the process of me fixing myself being not brainwashed, and we went through tools, and I went through physical, mental tools, as you will see in my videos, about being unbrainwashed. And when I cleared myself of the Jehovah Witness brainwash, and I was just thinking the other day, and this is the conversation, like I said, I told you it's going to be like a conversation. Just the other day, someone asked me for a cigarette. I was working on a song, and as I do all the time, and I was sitting down, getting ready to take the train. I had one more block to walk, and this guy asked for a cigarette. And, you know, I gave him a cigarette, and then I go to I told him Merry Christmas. and I hope you have happy holidays or Merry Christmas. And then when he left, I thought to myself, and I go, and I really felt that I said Merry Christmas. I really felt it when I said it. But I thought about how much of a big deal it was, how long it took me to feel that way, to actually be myself and feel about telling somebody Merry Christmas. I mean, I did it when I was an ex-Jehovah Witness, but I didn't feel comfortable. But now I'm at the stage where I can tell someone Merry Christmas and really feel it. And just that thing, I was thinking about how long it took, okay? Because something took my decision whether or not I wanted to be someone who celebrated Christmas. I'm sorry about that. So anyway, that was just one point, just one thing, okay? And when I did these things, as you will know if you listen to the videos, and I really did them. I mean, like, for instance, when I don't know, maybe it was like 2 or 3 years ago now, but when I worked this program to where I was picking out things that Jehovah Witnesses say and that in language is not true, okay? So I did that, and it really helped because it tore it down, that all those words that doesn't really mean anything in actual language. And then just recently, because I was in this apartment when I did it, I did another breaking out of the program. Okay, so it was 2 times I worked on that program, and I successfully did both of them. But the reason why I'm making this title like this, and it's not just Jehovah Witness, because as I was unbrainwashing myself, I noticed that we today are brainwashed, because I broke out of the entire brainwash. What I'm saying, and I kind of explained it to you before, but this time it's solid, in the fact that it wasn't just the Jehovah Witnesses, which was a big part of my brainwash, but what I'm trying to say is the activity I used to Jehovah Witnessize me, I also, it was done, how can I say, it was done, and what I'm trying to say, it was done to where I was so pure in mind, and I'm using pure, I'm sorry, because that's the best word I can use, so pure in mind that it made me see the situation of the things that a lot of us, or most of us, are also still brainwashed about. So what I'm saying is that showed that the Jehovah Witnesses did use some kind of technique, because the technique to brainwash, because when I brainwash myself, I brainwash myself for everything, is what I'm trying to say. So I hope you understand that. Which brings me to other points. So maybe this video is not going to be as long as I thought it was, because like I said, so finding myself brainwashed as an ex-Jehovah Witness, and like I said, that's why I'm making the point is you just don't have to leave the Jehovah Witnesses, because that's just not it. Which is another point I'm going to tell you, which I have to. I'm telling you, this is like a conversation that's going all over the place, but it has to be done like this. I came to the point, I do want to finish the point about, but I know I will finish it because it's all connected. But I want to get into this. I just explained my state of mind now as being not brainwashed so far. then I saw a reason why you just can't leave the Jehovah Witnesses, because there's elements. And elements are things that you have to save yourself from. Like, for instance, the new system would not, forget about it, okay? Because there's elements of being alive. There's elements, like I said, you can be saved, and I said in my last video, you can be saved, okay? Jesus Christ saved us, but then you have to be a person. It's not like a Jehovah Witness when you think about the new system, because you're going to find yourself, how do you survive the new system? Okay, so that's what I'm talking about, the elements. So that debunks their whole new system thing, you know, because no matter what I found when I got deep brainwashed is that there's elements. They are elements that no matter what we have to face. The brainwashers let you think that there's no elements, but there's elements. There's a lot of elements. Like, the reason why I know that they don't want you to think about the complications of having a new system, because I mean, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, the reason why I know that they don't want you to know about the elements, because they bring up this new system which actually would entail a lot of elements of survival. And I mean, like, I'm not talking about not being saved, because we're individuals. We have to understand things about ourselves, okay? Unless you want to end up into some kind of like mental institution or somebody taking care of you. I mean, you're saved, but you have to live your life. And in the life is a lot of elements, okay? So that's what I'm, okay, and this is another thing. So this is a conversation, like I said, all these points go together. Like, for instance, I was thinking about Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, God tried to take care of the elements for them, okay? And that's the only time in life I ever seen, unless you're a child and your parents take care of the elements. But God, it appears to me like Adam and Eve were created as adults. Excuse me. And that's something big, okay? Because God has the power to do that. He created them as, I guess, adults. And he not hid the elements, but he took care of the elements because it was a paradise. It's going to become a lot of things that you're going to see in this video. But like I said, it's a conversation. Keep yourself together, okay? And it all goes together. So I know it's jumping, it's not jumping, it's a conversation. So anyway, have Adam and Eve. Okay, so he took care of the elements. Why do I know? Because, and this is me unbrainwashed, not just with the Jehovah Witnesses, but with everything else that's going on, which I'm going to explain in this video. So that means that he took care of the elements. In that paradise, what made it a paradise was the fact that God was taking care of the elements. That means that they didn't have to get up at 9, and you know I'm joking, but they didn't have to get up at 9 o'clock in the morning and go to work and then pay rent and all this other stuff because God took care of the elements. But in a world with many elements as we live today, we know that there's rules and regulations. But in the paradise, they only had to deal with one element. And what was that element? The only element that they had was don't mess with this tree. And a lot of people think, without, I'm talking to you without my brainwashing, okay? It's clear. Okay? So it wasn't an apple. It was the tree, okay? Which had apples, okay? Us knowing what we know, if we're, just say we go back and we're in the paradise, and God says, don't mess with that tree, we're going to say, oh no, I'm not going anywhere near that tree. This looks like one of the priests, but it's not. It's just, of course it's not. But anyway, so he says, you can do anything you want, but don't mess with that tree. And if we go back there, I mean, just saying that's for fun. We would say, no way, you're right. I'm going to build a fence around that tree. But anyway, the thing about it is that Eve, or Adam and Eve, Eve actually, she went over there. She was like curious. And if she didn't even touch the tree, or didn't even want to go by the tree, or leave that tree alone, you know what I mean? We all would have been in better condition. I don't think we still would have had to do. Okay, we're not talking about that. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is the elements. So, the elements, can you imagine how many elements it would be in a new system, okay? Not just that, but another point is that everybody, there's no way in the world that, which is wrong. I would have to say this is wrong for somebody to say that they're going to make it and nobody else is, okay? So that's just dead out wrong. As far in my state of not being brainwashed, I would have to say, first of all, clear the slate. That's wrong. In my world, the unbrainwashed, okay, everybody has the chance to be. So I can actually say they're wrong because I'm accepting them in my world where they're saved and I'm saved. Okay, so throw that concept of the Jehovah Witnesses out the door. So I did talk about Adam and Eve. And there's a lot of points that I'm going to make in this YouTube. In my state of being unbrainwashed. Because, remember, I unbrainwashed myself as a Jehovah Witness, and I woke up and it was like, wow, I'm unbrainwashed, not just a Jehovah Witness, but other things too. Wow. So anyway, that's one thing I also learned, is the fact that the way something was taught, like for instance, we were taught about Eve took the apple. No, it wasn't just that Eve took the apple. She went over by the tree, okay? It was the tree. So don't blame the apples. And I don't think it was an apple, it was something else. Something that looks like an apple, I guess. You could say any kind of fruit, really. But there's one fruit that I had, and I think it was in Houston or something. Somebody told me it was so good, but it wasn't an apple. It was like an apple. I don't even know the name of it. But anyway, I think that would probably be more close. But anyway, there's another point about that, okay? Because I found myself not being brainwashed, when I started thinking about Adam and Eve, I noticed Adam and Eve was kicked out of pretty much the garden. They were kicked out of the garden. It was a garden, I guess. So that means that there was other people. This is my state of being unbrainwashed, okay? To where I just listened to people and didn't put it together with everything else. So there was other people. I'm not going to go into the other people, but everybody knows how they exist, why there were other people. The only reason when you're brainwashed, and I said we were brainwashed as Jehovah's Witness, we're also brainwashed as other things, is because that makes it unable, and this is important that I'm going to tell you. It makes it, and I'm telling you points, even though I'm not talking about Jehovah Witnesses all the time, it's helping you to show you more strengthening tools as an ex-Jehovah Witness, because like I said, all this time I have still had the brainwashing, okay? So when I talk about that there were other people, you know that there were other people, okay, on the earth other than Adam and Eve, because the reason why we don't know, because like I said, all of the brainwashing that happened to us, it kind of like messes up your ability to connect the dots. So there was other people because they were kicked out. So if they were kicked out, that means that they're with everybody else in the world. So the reason why I had to say that was that there were other gods. Okay, there had to have been other gods. There's a reason why. And like I said, you all understand it, but the reason why you're not going to be able to follow me, because you still brainwashed, okay? Like I said, when I did those things, when I do something, I do it like 100%, okay? Because I pray about it, and I've worked on these things. I do have a perfection also, and like I told everybody else, I told you before, and I'm not bragging or anything, but it did a lot of work ever since I was a kid. It's that I remember what I don't know, okay? I remember what I don't know, okay? And from the first thing I started on this YouTube, I didn't know what I was doing in life. I didn't know and I was saying, I did all these things in life, and what am I doing? I mean, like, this thing fell. I mean, like, what can I do? You know what I mean? What is it actually that I can do? It was kind of like pretty much sickening. It was sickening because it was like sad. And then I kind of figured out, well, what did I know? What have I been studying all the time? And I figured out that it's, you know, I know what I didn't know. I mean, when I say I don't forget the things that I didn't know. And which is also, I'm saying, it covers a perfection of knowing what would have been or what may have been. So may have been and would have been goes along with, I can't explain it, I'll explain it a little bit, goes along with the perfection of knowing, remembering what you don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to show you, and we're going to keep everything that we just talked about, because it's a conversation, is still lingering. I could say random access memory, in our random access memory. Okay, so we don't want to close those points yet. Okay, that's a pretty big term. Okay, so anyway, so now I want to go to a point about, since I'm talking about not being brainwashed, okay? And these are points that we have to use as ex-Jehovah Witnesses, because it helps us to deprogram ourselves of the Jehovah Witness. But when you deprogram yourself of Jehovah Witness, like I'm telling you, you're going to deprogram yourself for everything else. So anyway, I remember, just to show you an example of my perfection, and it is a perfection because I did it until I did it perfectly. Since I was a child, I didn't know what I was doing, okay? Like, for instance, and I said this before, but I'm putting it in this context now as a Jehovah, as, you know, as this Jehovah Witness tape. When I was a little child, okay, and I was a little child, putting together things, okay, I remember a screen, and I talked about this before, but it's like a screen. Of course, it can't be exactly what I'm talking about, but it's closest to a clear screen. Almost if you, if you put up a clear screen, it's a big one, but if you think about cellophane or some kind of clear plastic, okay, and it's a square and you just hang it in the sky, that's the closest of the concept of what I'm talking about. And now I'm going to talk to you about an example, okay? One example, and it's something that happened, is presidents. I had this problem with presidents, okay? Because I know there was a president of the United States, and he was on the screen. The president of the United States. But then I had a problem because I kept hearing president in different contexts. I didn't know what context was, of course, back then. But my perfection, like I said, I can go back and see what's exactly on my mind, what I didn't know, okay? Now you can see what I'm saying. I can go back and find out exactly what I didn't know. And I can see myself right now, what I didn't know, okay? I didn't know what a context was. I didn't know that they were using president in different contexts. So anyway, I'm back there and I'm going president, and then, oh wow, they said president again. And it didn't slide on this board. It wouldn't even go on the board, okay? But it was a note. So it still went with the board, but only it's a note for. So you have like the screen, president, okay? And then you have like, I heard president again, okay? Just in conversation. And in somebody's conversation, and it wouldn't go on that screen because I couldn't fit it on the screen, but it was there. But it's something that goes along with it, but it's like, I can't explain. I'll explain that later on. So then I kept going. I remember being on a bus. I don't know how old I was, but then I heard this president again, and that thing popped up again. It was like, what? Another president? And then I'm thinking, president of the United States, he's president of all these things? He's president of this, president of that? Sorry to say, I was pretty much older. I'm almost sure. It wasn't like I was, when I figured it out, I wasn't like 3 or 4. It kept going for a long time, okay? I'm almost sure it wasn't 3 or 4. Maybe it wasn't even 10 that I had figured it out. But anyway, that's a system. But me in my mind, which is, like I said, I do things, but the thing about it is I also examine what I'm doing. So I kept the screen and I kept the activity of challenging things. Like, for instance, like, oh, this president, there's a president on the card, but this is not the president of the United States. But what I'm saying is I also recorded the system that I was working with to identify what a president of the United States is and what it means to be president, okay? So that's the perfection that I did, and it entails all those things. So now I'm going to go deeper into the conversation, but I needed you to understand that example of the president because it showed you how what I'm saying, which I'm going to show you how I'm saying, my credibility is going to show my credibility or my credentials as far as the things that I'm going to express on this tape, on this YouTube. So I can actually say it's scholarly. I got my BA degree, okay? I went back and I got my BA degree when I was in my 40s. I mean, I wanted to get an easy one, but they wouldn't let me. I remember one time they put me in this room. I think I've told you this before. and we had to take this test. For some reason, they thought I needed to take a test. And this was in Atlanta, Georgia, with all the black people. The black people can be prejudiced too, like I said. And they weren't on my side, okay? So, anyway, okay, so they thought for some reason I needed to take a grammar test, not a grammar test, a writing test, okay? Because they had a problem, America or something had this problem, and you have to take these tests. Or anyway, I don't know why, but anyway, I had to take a reading test. So I did the reading test, and then I had to take a reading and writing. So one time I ended up, they looked at me really like, I don't know, there's another story that goes along with it. But anyway, they looked at me really strange, and when I was taking this test, they had something on me, I guess I can say. They had something on me. So, I'll explain that here also. So anyway, I'm just going to explain to you about what happened at this reading test. So, this writing, I did the reading, I'm almost sure, I passed the reading. But then they had this writing test. And, they said, you're older. You can take this other reading test. I said, okay. And I was all right with that. And I can still get my BA? Okay, yeah. So when I went to the seat to get the easy test, because I was older, they looked at me and she goes, you cannot do it. You have to take the regular one. So when I went back, I had to go back and I had to take the regular test. And I passed it, okay? And that's one thing that I was happy about, that I did take the regular test, because also my BA, when you're older, you can actually get an easier BA at some colleges. Not easier, I don't know, it's just, you don't have, anyway, mine couldn't have been easy because I dealt with language, because it was language, there's no way out. You have to do the language. There's no easy way out. But I know they had some BAs that you could get easily being older. So anyway, what I'm trying to say, my credentials is I do have a regular BA. Bachelor, and my bachelor's degree is modern language, okay? And that's at Metropolitan State University of Denver. So I graduated, I got my thing, and I also, and like I said, I did a minor in linguistics. And also, I'm telling you about a talent that I have, a perfection of knowing, remembering what I don't know, remembering what I didn't know, which gives me the proper knowledge of what may have happened and what could have happened, okay? So I'm sorry, I had to use all that because I'm going to talk about some really strong information here, okay? So it's scholarly is what I'm trying to say. So it may be boring because it's scholarly, but it's scholarly, and it's hit the nail on the head type of information. So now, what happened at the Adam and Eve, which is very important. There's one thing I also find, because I'm able to connect the dots because I'm not brainwashed now, okay? And one of the dots I connected was the fact that, which I've always known this anyway, but now I couldn't do it scholarly. But if Adam and Eve were not here, and this is like common sense, we would not be here, okay? We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Adam and Eve. Yes, there were other people, okay? But as a Christian, we would not be here, which means we would not be here because we're Christians. Why do I say that? It's because we came from Adam and Eve. Who came from Adam and Eve? Well, the Christians came from Adam and Eve. Why am I saying that? Christians is a religion? No, it's not a religion. It's actually a bloodline from Adam and Eve. Well, what did God do when he created Adam and Eve? He created people that have an ability, not to say that other people don't or can't get it, but he created people who can relate to him. Not so much speak to him, because I noticed that not everybody has the ability. I'm not saying the ability, or I can pretty much say want to, okay? Because life is so full. But although they don't have the ability, or they don't want to speak to him directly, or don't know that they can speak to him directly, however, they're able to pray to him directly, able to pray to him directly without using assistance from other people. That's one of the things, which is an ability to relate to heaven, I can say. So that's what Adam and Eve, that's what he created when he created Adam and Eve. A people who can relate to him personally, like we are. Adam and Eve was alive back then. We're alive now through time, okay? So we are descendants of Adam and Eve. I would not be able to connect all these dots if I was still brainwashed by the world or brainwashed by the Jehovah Witnesses, okay? So, Adam and Eve. So now, let's go up to Abraham, okay? He too were able to communicate with God, okay? Oh, I want to say something else. Cain and Abel. Cain killed Abel. It doesn't appear, Abel appears to have had a relationship with God, but a different kind of a relationship with God. He was seems to be just a beautiful person who stayed in heaven. What I mean by heaven is like, maybe he didn't conversate so much with God, but he just enjoyed life. And he loved God. But they weren't really God. I mean, he was God, but the thing about it is, it was just so, his creator, I mean, they didn't even have to say God, because he was there. It was like Father, you know what I mean? It was like so for granted, okay? And remember, Cain and Abel was not in the new system. I mean, they were outside the garden, okay? Cain didn't realize that he had a benefit too. He was able to speak to God. So he actually communicated with God, okay? When did he communicate with God? He communicated with God when or God communicated with him, because God was able to, he was jealous. He was jealous of his brother, and he killed his brother, okay? But the only point I'm trying to make here is that Cain was able to communicate with heaven, and God was able to communicate with him. And I don't think it could be like we're speaking now. It was so personal, okay? And it was in a personal heavenly language that we as Christians have today. And it was passed down. Because everybody in the world doesn't have it, okay? Everybody in the world doesn't have it. If you go over to India, to most of the people in India, they will not know what you're talking about, because they're not under the God training that we had. If you go over to China, they will not be able to tell you, because they did not have that training. But we have the training because we are directly from the living creatures who had a direction from God. This direction passed on until Abraham. It wasn't something new that Abraham was just able to communicate or pray to God personally. But we find out that God wanted him for something. So it appears that when God wants you for something, he kind of like treats you, not, I guess you can say treats you differently, to where everybody else could be enjoying their life and enjoy God and know that he exists, okay? But he needed something to be done, okay? And he noticed the qualities of Abraham. So, because Abraham was a descendant of the ones who communicate with God, Abraham was able to communicate with God. Okay, so there wasn't everybody on earth able to do what these people of Abraham was able to do, him and his children, because they were all descendants of this type of people that were created, which started with Adam and Eve. So I'm also stating that Adam and Eve still did give us something, and what they gave us was the ability, they birthed the ability to understand heaven, to have a heaven, to understand God, to stop when God talks to us. We can go on our day without talking to God and everything like that. But the thing about it is, when he wants us, or when we do something wrong, or when he doesn't agree with something, he can pretty much come into our lives. Or something very good. So Abraham, sorry, this video is going to be a long time. So anyway, Abraham, and I'm going to let out some really big points. So Abraham was able to, so the major point I'm trying to make is that we're descendants. I'm going to go back to Abraham, but we're descendants from Abraham. And a lot of people, through our brainwashing, we get it all mixed up. It's all mixed up all over the place. I swear it is. Okay? Because the main point about Abraham and his children was the fact that through them, we are here. Okay? They were living back then. We're living here now. It appears that God planned us to be, okay? Because it was like, okay, well, all the earth could have been populated so many different ways, but the earth was populated for us, not just us, because we don't own all the property on the earth, but the ones that that came from Adam and Eve, we have a certain amount of property. And just think about all the Christian lands. And when I say Christians, you know what I mean now. I don't mean religion. I mean that come from Christianity. So Abraham. So what I'm trying to say is God kind of like shepherded us to the state that we are in now. Why in the world would, through our brainwashing of the world, and I think, of course, Jesus' adversary had a lot to do with it, we think that we just came about. I mean, like, we don't have a connection to anything, which is sad, but it's hidden. The connection of, we don't know who we are, we don't know where we came from, we don't know anything. It's not just that, it's because we've been brainwashed to whereas we don't know that we're the actual chosen ones. Like, for instance, how can I say this? The Jehovah Witnesses would not be if the world itself wasn't brainwashed also. So Abraham. So you have people now. The reason why I said so I'm sorry for that because I'm talking so much. But Abraham brought on, Abraham, who did he talk to? He talked to the God, the God of Abraham. There was a God of Abraham. So God of Abraham, the God of Abraham. So we actually believe in Abraham and the God of Abraham. But you have people who want to say that they're the only ones who are Hebrew. It doesn't, with being brainwashed, that doesn't make any sense. Because I never hear anybody talk about those people who say that they're Hebrew. I never hear them say God of Abraham. God of Abraham this, God of Abraham this. Since they stopped at Abraham, they never say God of Abraham this, God of Abraham that. Why? Because they don't worship God of Abraham. Now, which puts them in the category as everybody else. I'm telling them that you belong with us, just like everybody else. So everybody is not just these people who think that they're Hebrew, who are Hebrew. It's not just them, okay? I'm saying we all come from Abraham. So join the bunch. You're not by yourself. You're not in this little group by yourself who are the only people who are going to be saved, okay? So what I'm trying to say is that because of there's a lot of common sense, me being unbrainwashed, I see, okay? First of all, I want to say is that nobody talks about the God of Abraham. And Jesus's, how can I say? We worship Jesus, we're Christians, and we know that the God of Abraham is our God. But you have a lot of people on earth today who say they're Hebrew, but they never talk about the God of Abraham, okay? They never say, God of Abraham this, 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 God of Abraham this. And that's how important it would be. But if the Christians were living back then, we would also say God of Abraham this. Because being Hebrew, the number one thing to be Hebrew is that you had a God, and it was Abraham's God. And now we're talking about Hebrews. And Hebrews knew what was going to happen all the time because they were in heaven with the God of Abraham all the time. Okay? They didn't need anything. They, of course, to be like organized on earth, yes, they needed a structure so that they all could get along with each other. So they needed some kind of government. But what I'm saying is they had the God of Abraham. And the God that I talk to, the God that I pray to all the time, and the God that wants me to do things and do this and beautiful and all this other stuff, is the God of Abraham. Okay? So he was the God of Abraham. He was the Israelite God, the God of Israel. It was the God of Israel. He is the God of Israel. He's the God of Abraham. He's the Jewish God also. So he continually let us know more about him. Okay? So when I say God, and when I talk about the God that I'm talking about the God of Abraham. And I'm also talking about the God of Israel. And it wasn't all these Israelites, it wasn't a land. Because you know what? God doesn't really care about land because it comes and it goes. Look at France, okay? Think about the borders of France, how it changed. The borders of Europe, how the borders of Europe change. How the borders of Russia changes. So it doesn't really make a difference about the land, but you need a king. A king makes a difference. A king lets you understands the people, and the people just are able to live under the king And God can relate to the king whenever he has to worry about the people. But as far as Israel and land, it's no land. It's no land. Unless you have a king, then you have land. Okay, but land doesn't really mean anything because it could go and it could come. Okay? Like it always does. The reason why I say that because there was a brainwashing. I was looking at YouTube and somebody put up about Israel. This is the same Israel as today. It's not true. It's just not true. First of all, even if it was, land doesn't make a difference, you know? So that's one point I want to say is that there are so many common sense things that I learned being unbrainwashed. And the number one thing is that we are the same people, descendants of the people all the way from Abraham. And there's no way in the world a human being can actually, because the thing about it is, know whether who they came from, because first of all, a lot of Jews, a lot of Hebrews didn't read or speak, so they're not able to say okay. And another point I want to make about the Hebrews. The Hebrews were like all God's people. They were mixed with so many things. They were white, they were black, they were all different colors. What I'm trying to say is that today there's people who say that they're Jewish, but it's not really true because they are actually following a white system. Okay, what I'm trying to say is that they don't want you to think that they're white. Okay, but they're white. But when I got unbrainwashed, I didn't understand that until I got unbrainwashed. And I was like, okay, so then I had to go through all the groups. This is what I've always gone through. Okay, like for instance, the Christians who are white, okay, and the Christians who are black, I noticed that it's not a strong bond to be white or black. It's like a thing that we just live with, okay? Because when you're white and you're prejudiced and you're Christian, there will be some other white people who will be black. I mean, God can make a white person black and say, okay, well, we're kind of balancing out this. I mean, we need help here. And you're white, but you're going to be black because you have to make sure that this is not something that will harm these other people, okay? So when I talk about Christians who are white and who are black, they're there. God makes sure that they're balanced, that they will be heard. Like for instance, there's black people who talk about white people, okay? And there's black people who say things that are prejudiced. And they have people like me, I'm black, and I will say, no, that's not true. So what I'm saying as a Christian, we can't be black or white. I mean, we could be black or white. Yes, I'm black and there's white people, but the thing about it is it's not consistent. What I'm saying is like I gotta put it in a certain way because I don't want to offend certain people. Like okay, like I don't want to say that because I know black people don't. I know how black people are. I know how white people are. So how am I gonna say this? I gotta put it in a certain way. Okay, like there's white people, there's black people who may experience difficulties, which I know it's true. And however, there's white people who are prejudiced. I'm talking about Christians. Christian white people are prejudiced, but then there's Christian white people who are not prejudiced. And they will tell those people, white people, Christians who are prejudiced, that you're doing the wrong thing. You cannot do this or you cannot do that. So what I'm trying to say is they're not consistent. That being white is not consistent as a Christian. being black is not consistent as a Christian because I can see it in myself. Even though there's a lot of black people, and there's black people who don't like white people. They're prejudiced against the black people, against white people. But it's not consistent. So you will have black people, if they see other black people say something or do something that is prejudiced against anybody or somebody white, they're going to say that's wrong. So what I'm trying to say, it's not consistent with the black color, with the rules of being black. There's not 100% consistency, okay? Because there are white people who died for helping black people who needed help, and there's white people who die. Okay, how can I say? There's white people who died helping black people because of prejudice, and there's black people who die, believe it or not. Well, we already know that. There's black people who die helping white people. So they're both races, or whatever they call race, is not consistent. However, with the people who call themselves Jews nowadays, and I'm sorry, I have to state this, is that I used to worship Jewish. I mean, and I'm not talking about Jewish individual people. What I'm talking about is the construct, they call it, or something. These leaders, these Jewish leaders. The reason why it's wrong, and it's like the Jehovah Witnesses also. That's why I'm talking about as an ex-Jehovah Witness. Because the people don't have a say. If you do something against in a if the Jehovah Witnesses do something wrong, the single Jehovah Witnesses will not talk against them. In this Jewish system, and it's white, and they hold to that as not being Christian, because they don't follow Jesus. They don't have that responsibility. They can hold to this whiteness, okay, to being white, 100%, maybe 1 or 2, but it's still less than 1, okay? They hold to this whiteness, okay? And there's so many things I have to say. The reason why I know this is because it's so common sense. It's so common sense that they are not the Jews in the Bible, okay? I don't even have to do it scholarly, okay, to say that they are not the Jews from the Bible. But they're there to, and I'm speaking not as a prejudice, I'm speaking as something as to help people, even to help them, because it's not really healthy to think of yourself as something that you're not. Okay, so they can't be. The reason why I say this is because for them to say that they're Jewish, the Christians feel that they're Jewish in the Bible, which is not true. It's all a deception. And I'm saying this because I'm not brainwashed, okay? And that's another point as far as being brainwashed, is that the individual people can't speak against the people who are running. Like, for instance, like I said, the Jewish leaders, okay, they can't speak against the people. I never hear individual people strongly say, no, this is not right. You cannot be this. I mean, like, constantly. Like, for instance, I talked about the white Christians who are prejudiced. Then you have the white Christians who are not prejudiced. They will stand up, even more so sometimes than the blacks, to help blacks. The same thing with blacks. They will stand up for whites sometime more so than a white person would stand up for them themselves, you know. So that debunks their being white, but puts them in the category of Jesus or God, because God is actually controlling them, okay? And there's certain things that Christians can't do that, now I want that Jehovah Witnesses can do, or that Jewish people can do, okay? And I say today's Jew, okay? I can say today's Jewish people. And it's so common sense. The reason why I'm talking about it is because there's a discrepancy, or there's a deception in this, because I was brainwashed. I really believed that every time that the Jewish people, it's in my comments. It's in my comments all over the internet that I made. I would actually say, no, these people are different. They talk to God, And the funny thing about it is God let me see that for myself, because I actually communicate with God. But when you have a deception, you don't think right, okay? So I wasn't even thinking right when I said that they have a connection with God, or they're going to be punished by God, And I would say that, God would not even tell me. He let me see it for myself, that this is not true. I mean, you're communicating with me. You're praying to me. And in actuality, they don't even pray to God. They don't pray to God. You know why? Because they don't say Hebrew God. Okay? They don't say God of Hebrew. If they're Hebrew and they think they're so Hebrew, okay? And another thing too, as if Hebrews never just had Hebrew children. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, as if Hebrew is a pure race when it's anything but pure. When you're a slave and they were slaves, you're going to mix, because you're just going to mix with Egyptian. Egyptians are going to mix with you. There's Egyptians who became Hebrew, and they were accepted. There's a lot of Egyptians who became Hebrew, who believed in the Hebrew God, and they became Hebrew. There's a lot of Hebrews who became Egyptians. Okay? Back then you could hide it. Internet now you can't hide it. But you could hide and you could become like Egypt. You become like an Egyptian. Look at was it Joshua? I think it was Joshua. He became Egyptian. If he kept going, he would just be Egyptian. Nobody would think about, oh wow, there's no internet, there's no paperwork. You know what I mean? So there's no way in the world somebody today can say they're Hebrew. Everybody is Hebrew. I mean, like, nobody can say where they came from because they're not God. You can't go back, okay? But there's another thing too, is that we needed those people, Hebrews, okay? Why? Because to have a child, to live today, your life has to go through all the way back to, I'm almost sure, all the way back to Adam and Eve. You have to go back, okay? If you don't go back, that means you're not alive. And if you mess with your genealogy, like today's Jews are, you're gonna mess up you got a road. Every time you have a child, it has to go clean back, and it looks for differences, because individual. Everything, the major thing as far as having a child is that child being unique. So you go all the way back, every child, to see that you're not there, okay? And then you become this only person that never existed before. But if you mess with that, and that's why I'm saying it helps people what I'm saying, because you keep tampering and saying you're today's Jews, and you keep you're gonna go somewhere that doesn't exist. And like I said, the Hebrews, God never told them they can't have children with this person, they can't have children with this person. The Egyptians became Hebrew. the the um the a lot of the how can I say Latin? How can I say what was the next empire? Uh, the empire that I'm talking about. Uh, what I'm trying to say is there's no rules and regulations to be back then when you were Jewish. There was no rules and regulations. Okay. Another point that you can tell that they're not that people today who say they're Jewish are not Jewish is because first of all they don't say Hebrew God. They don't talk about God. Okay. Um, they don't talk about famous Jewish people. Everything is from the New Testament, and they don't believe in the New Testament. The New Testament, if it wasn't for the New Testament, there would be no Jewish. There would be no Jewish. I mean, there would be no understanding of what it is to be Jewish. Okay? So they had to believe in the New Testament. That's what I'm trying to say. It's a way to, how can I say, it's a, and maybe I got to end this because it's going so long, but what I'm trying to say, it's a, and I'm going to end this because it's so long, but what I'm trying to say is there's, oh, where am I going? How can I finish this? I was going back to Rome. Okay, let's go back to Rome. Okay, so the Romans, and this is what I wanted to say, I couldn't find out the Romans, they became Jewish. I mean, the thing about it is that no Jewish people like us today are going to say no. Maybe today is easier, but back then, if you fell in love with somebody who was from Rome, you just married them, okay? Okay, and they married you. Nobody listened to, it's just, we are the same people, the same type of people today as they were back in the Jewish days. Because the thing about it is, oh, there's another point I want to make, okay? I'm just stating that it's common sense that today's Jew is not Jewish. Everybody's there. Everybody's descendants. They don't, okay, first of all, I want to state this. They don't talk about famous Jewish people. I know I'm doing all these points. They don't talk about famous Jewish people. Jesus. What's the matter with Jesus? If they're Jewish, wouldn't they mention Jesus? Not hate him? He's Jewish. All the Jewish followers, they never talk about Jewish followers. The Jewish followers, they were everywhere. The whole Jewish people were followers. Just think about yourself today. Think about it today, okay? Marilyn Monroe, President Lincoln, Diana, Princess Diane, Michael Jackson. Those people are famous and they were loved. They are loved, okay? And they're dead, okay? But now think about Jesus, okay? Put them all together, okay? And think about Jesus. How many Jewish people do you actually think believed in Jesus? Think about all those famous people that we cannot deny and we continue to love, okay? Back then, now think about how we would be, okay? And Jesus back then was a celebrity too. He was everything. Go back right now, okay? We're back there. We're back in the time when Jesus was alive. Just say, all the people we know, we're alive now, so we can figure out how it would be. And how much we loved him, okay? And the only people that were against him were the government, okay? Or our, let's say, just the higher up people, okay? You know what I'm saying? Who were structuring things, you know what I mean? Would we actually listen to them? Okay, I mean, we wouldn't listen to them. Like all the things they say about Michael Jackson, all the things they say about Princess Diana. What is the percentage of people that, if we were back then, now the only thing I'm trying to say is back then, now you can see the percentage of people who didn't have anything not even a mind, their own mind, and God gave them that mind, okay? Think about how strong they care for him, okay? And think about the Jewish people now. You know, no way in the world that they are the same people. There's no way in the world. First of all, they wouldn't talk about I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish, okay? They wouldn't do that. It's not a big deal. They would be saying Jesus, God, God of Israel, God of Abraham. That's the most important. Has nothing to do with root or who fleshly they are, okay? So what I'm saying, we're back there now. Think, look around how everybody loved him. Okay, now I'm going to go back. I'm back there. And I'm saying, wow, Jesus. Oh, we heard about this about Jesus. He's this. He's this. Jesus is this. Remember? Oh, my dear Lord. One has this story about Jesus. And then we hear that Jesus is in trouble. Oh, can you imagine? And they had to tell it by word of mouth, okay? But just think about how many people, it has to be more people than today who loves Michael Jackson, Princess Diane, I guess I gotta put Madonna back into it. She's not doing too well though. But Marilyn Monroe, and Princess Diane, all those people, and President Lincoln, okay? He was more important than all those people. And how we can talk about just one person more important than all those people. And I'm back there in the Jewish times, okay? And then we find out that they're going to crucify him. Oh! Oh, I cannot believe this. They're going to crucify him. The God who came to see us. Oh, we have to be there. We have to go there. We have to go see him. We have to walk and go see him. Now just think about all those people. Did they think that they were Jewish? I mean, did they really care? I mean, do the people who call themselves Jewish nowadays actually say and talk about anything like that? That was a big deal back then, you know? There's another point. Oh, and another point I want to mention before I finish. It was just a conversation. Maybe I'll have a conversation too. They talk about, and this is not a hate tape or anything like that, it's just me being, and I love them, okay? But you could love them, but they don't love you back. I know that because I love Jewish people all the time, and they didn't love me back. I know that. I waited on them constantly when I was younger, and not one of them ever said, thank you, separately. But I have waited on white people, and they actually surrounded me one time, and so I could drink a drink with them. Things like that. That shows me where the God is, the actual God is, okay? And what I'm trying to say is, the only thing I'm trying to say is this is scholarly, and the reason why I'm saying this is because another thing too is because something, not a discrepancy, but it's a, how can I call it? What can I call it? It's a, I had the word, but it just, it's a deception. It's a deception, okay? I was deceived, okay? This is deceived, and it helped. And when I'm not deceived now, I can see that we all can be one on earth because we all come from the same thing. And that's why I say it's a deception. They're included too, but only they're not above us, So that's why I'm saying it's not prejudice or anything. And now I want to say some things that they use against Christians, and it really hurts me. One thing is, and I had to find out, and I did it perfectly. One thing I found out was this anti-Semitic, okay, and because I prayed about it, and it was like, well, why, if I say something, I have to be afraid about not being anti-Semitic. And then I had to come to agreement about the anti-Semitic because I understood what the opposite of it was. When I understood the opposite of what anti-Semitic was, then I understood anti-Semitic. And the opposite of anti-Semitic is anti-Christ. Okay? So you can have anti-Semitic because I had to go into their mind and what they think. And the major part of their being anti-Semitic is a person who doesn't believe in Jesus or who doesn't believe in Christianity or Jesus. And the opposite of that, and talking about them negatively or in a bad light. And then I saw the negative. I mean, the opposite. And the opposite would be anti-Christian. Anti-Christian or anti-Christ, which they are 100% anti-Christ in the Israel land that they have. And they're not because of their influence and power, they're not what do you call it when you have a few people? They're not a minority. Minorities don't have power, okay? They don't have a power group behind them. That's what you call a minority. When you have a country and when you have money enough and power to deceive people, and it was a big deception that they did, then you're not a minority. You're a power. You're a force, okay? And for them to say that they're minority is also a deception. They deceive by saying that when they go to Ivy League schools, that's not a minority, okay? That's not a discrimination, okay? I'm just saying it that I clarified myself when I became unbrainwashed, okay? And so they're not a minority, okay? And did I make the point? Okay, about the Antichrist, okay? They are Antichrist because they hate Jesus. Because I've been, okay, and this goes into the point of my perfection that I have, okay? With the thing with the president also happened to me in life several times. And I have boards. That board, one was for president, one, they came up in time all the time. And one was the Jewish and the Christians. How the Christians were Jewish people. Okay? But I didn't see that. It went up on a board. Okay? There was something in history that I had to put a board up and I had to clarify it. And what makes it perfect is in my life, everything, and this has come from remembering what I don't know. On this one subject of that Christian Jew thing, Jewish Christians, or Christians becoming that Christians that were Jews, okay? There's that paper that I told you about being president, okay? Every instant, everything that happens that relates to that subject goes on an addendum, okay? And when I was telling you about all those presidents that I couldn't understand, there's a screen that just has president. This is the president of the United States. Where there was a screen, it was a gap. What is this Christian and what is this Jewish? Why aren't there any Jewish people today? that talk, you understand what I'm saying? So there's addendums. It doesn't touch that screen because the screen allows me to have this mind to where everything that comes or relates, every conversation that I have with today's Jews, everything I see in the news that relates to this subject goes as addendums on this board. And it's like this. And it just keeps going. If I have a relationship or I'm with somebody who goes on this board with this Christian and religion and all this other stuff, it goes on addendums and it just keeps plucking like this. And I mean millions of times, just all through my whole life. Every time it goes on this subject, it will make an addendum. Like, this is the subject, an addendum, an addendum, an addendum, an addendum. And I go through this experience and I put it on the addendum. I go through this experience and I put it on the addendum, 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 the addendum. But I couldn't access the addendums because I was deceived or brainwashed by society. Okay, I couldn't see it. Okay, I really couldn't. And after the brainwashing, the brainwashing and the deception even affects my addendum kept going. My addendum kept going, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't trace it. But when I got all that brainwashing out, I could see the addendum. I could see it all. It just was so common sense that we're in the Bible. I mean, we are actually in the Bible, okay? And it made me feel really good that we are who we are. We have a connection. When we read the Bible, those are our people, which makes a lot of sense, because why would God make these? When I was brainwashed thinking that today's Jews were the Jewish people, that's another thing. It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? Why would God have all these people? What happened to? It's like they killed all the Jewish people who love Jesus. That's impossible. But you don't see it because you're deceived. We're all deceived. Okay. And I even saw, like when I see the Jewish people of today, they wear the cap. That comes from the Pope. He had it first. And I'm going to tell you, it's just like everybody else in the world. Today's Jews are like everybody else in the world. Everybody wants to be great. The Jehovah Witnesses, everybody wants to be number one. Everybody wants to be the ones that saved. But it's everybody together. So I'm saying, I'm not excluding them. Oh, and I can say, if they say something against what I'm saying, because I'm talking as a Christian, that would be anti-Christ. If they call me anti-Semitic, then I can call them anti-Christ, because I needed that word, because God is not going to see that one people have one word that puts them in a higher position than anybody else. So it's the only thing I want to do is to make people see today that it's everybody is accepted. Not just everybody comes from those people. If you're in a Christian, and I'm just talking about Christian people who pray to Abraham's God, the God of Israel, Jewish God, Jesus, the Christian God. And we don't have all the land. And I'm just talking, and it's in all of those things are from blood. It's not a religion. It's not religion. And another point I want to make is this. We have our government that we have to follow. And if you're Christian, it's not a religion, but it's a bloodline that you have. And it comes with rules, okay? Just like we have a government, and you should be happy that you that you live someplace. Because just like I'm happy that I was born in America, well, you have to be happy that you're Christian. First, you have to understand that it's a bloodline. It's a bloodline. It's definitely a bloodline. And when the Jewish people, and you can't say the Jewish people because they're part of you, they became, the whole Christian thing was Jewish. They're the ones that started the Christianity. Not Christianity. It's that they became Jews. I mean, they became Christians. They the ones that did it. And they did it so that they could show that God loves everybody and that you could be pretty much anything. And that's another thing too. Is the reason why it's no Jewish people today, because it's only them and there's no mix. They say who they are. I am Jewish and I'm from the Bible. It's impossible. Only God can do that. Only God can trace back. But you don't even know what your own children are doing. I mean, like, if I had 10 children, or say I had 10 children, there would be no way in the world I would be able to tell that they are all going to be this certain way. It's impossible. I have no control over who they're going to talk to, who they're going to sleep with, who they're going to love. Impossible. But we do it. Why do we do it? Because we're human beings and we want to be the best. And that's our fault. Our fault is that we want to be number one. We want to be saved. We want God only for ourselves. Even when God made he really, really loves me and he really, really takes care of me. And sometimes I just so jealous, but then I had to get over that because he loves everybody else too. So it's not just me, okay? It's everybody together. And I'm saying drop your Jewish, yes, you should. And there's no Jesus for Jews. When you're saying Jesus for Jews, you're actually saying our race is better than God. And we're going to worship him. But it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. And the thing about it is all these very smart people already know what I'm telling you. And I know that a lot of Christians already know this if they're hooked to heaven anyway, if they pray. They weren't able to express it. But I'm able to express it because in a way that is scholarly, in a way that I'm able to do it in a polite way, in a right way. And I don't want anybody to discriminate or be anti-Christian, anti-Christ against me. So, and I've seen it, and I saw so much information about how this country, Israel, totally hates Jesus. I mean, but that's another thing too. And it's sad that Christians have to hide their religion, but that's the way Jesus wants us to do, because Jesus wants him to do the fighting for us. So that's why Christians don't really do anything. And the only one point I want to make also is I really can't make the point because it's so much, and it's so much. The only thing I have to close this. So now, if it wasn't, the only reason why I'm saying this hooks to ex-Jehovah Witness, because if it really wasn't for people like the Jewish people of today, okay, and I'm talking about the things that they deceive us on, it's really deception. It's really deception, because they make Christians think. It's not really thinking, but it's a confusion, okay? Because I remember, like I said, I have the perfection of remembering my mind exactly when I believed in the Jewish people of today being Jewish, okay? And only thing I could think of, I couldn't get to the point, there's no connections. It's like, oh, they're the Jewish of the Bible. I mean, like, maybe maybe when Jesus comes back, they could see that he's actually Jesus. But it doesn't work like that. The only thing is it's a deception. And they have to learn that they're deceiving a lot of people. Okay, because I feel good about being unbrainwashed, and I can see everything clearly, and I hope everybody else can. And the religions like the Jehovah Witnesses that teach that they're the only ones, it's not true. It's a deception. And it's the ultimate deception. And the Jews of today teaching that they're special, it's not true. Okay? They're brainwashed. So anyway, that's what this was about. So I guess I'm going to write down. So I guess this one is going to be on the conversation. I got to put these two things together. I don't know how, but the truth about being a Jehovah Witness and a ex-Jehovah Witness, which has saved me, and the conversation of my completeness of not being brainwashed, okay? And it goes hand in hand, because when I did the projects that I did as the ex-Jehovah Witness projects, I told you, honestly, it put me into a place to where I wasn't brainwashed at all. And it's just like, wow, I'm not brainwashed for Jehovah Witnesses, but it's still like, still little things I still have to do though, okay? So that's it, and I went on so long. Thank you very much. I hope you made it to the end.